What's up, everybody? Marc Farzy here for the Farzy Show. Welcome into the Steven Singer Studios. I hope you guys just had a delightful rest of your Thursday and happy Friday above all else, right? Let's start on a positive note. It's Friday. Eagles got a preseason game tonight at 7:30 against the New York Jets up there in North Jersey after another week of joint practices. We got a weekend in front of us where it's supposed to rain and thunderstorm, and that'll be great. But other than that, happy Friday. Yay. 10 years, folks. 10 years, 10 seasons that the Philadelphia Phillies will be missing the postseason. Yesterday, I was holding on to this phrase. I was holding on to this word, hopefully. And I even was smiling about it at one point during the show. Oh, hopefully. It's funny how you can't say Phillies without hopefully. Well, now that hopefully that hope is gone. It's dead. The eulogy will be right now, as a matter of fact. Dearly beloved, we're gathered here today to bury the Phillies. Bury the Phillies. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We're burying the Phillies. The Arizona Diamondbacks put a nail in the coffin of the Phillies yesterday. And this was after you had already studied the coffin with Rhys Hoskins saying that his season was done. He's going to get surgery. We'll let you hear from him in a second. This was after Zach Eflin was supposed to come back and make his start, but that evidently didn't work out because he came back to the ballpark yesterday after being taken off the injured list and put in the starting rotation again and slotted to start last night's game. But unfortunately, at the very last minute, he went for treatment right before the game with his knee. He did not respond to treatment, according to Tom McCarthy, right before the game during the broadcast. And then he was scratched, and Matt Moore got yet another start for the Phillies. All right. So Rhys is done for the year. The rotation isn't going to be as good as we thought it was going to be because we thought Zach Eflin was going to come back and at least be a solid fourth starter in this rotation. And you have lost essentially the guy that has been the heartbeat of the organization for the entire season and really the last couple of years in Rhys Hoskins. Then they go out and they lose despite sending 9 batters to the plate in the 9th inning, 5 of them scoring, and you still lose the game. I am looking back on 10 years, 10 seasons of the Philadelphia Phillies, and if there is one constant theme, other than the most glaring obvious thing, which is just lack of talent, which is the most important thing, let's get that out of the way before we get into any of the drama that surrounds it. But if there's one common thing to look at over the last decade of Phillies baseball now, where they're going to be missing the playoffs after making the playoffs in 2011 with Roy Halladay and all those guys, right? After missing the playoffs that following season, the last 10 years now, the last 10 seasons, it's been a late season collapse. For the vast majority of those 10 years, it's been all about the late August to September collapse where they have given you hope. And they say, you know what? No, we're going to buck the trend. We're going to turn things around now. This is where the Phillies are going to make the playoffs again. The late August happened under Gabe Kapler. I mean, I feel like I've recounted it 1,000 times already. But if there's one common theme, it's the fact that they have collapsed in the second half of the season. After they have shown you some hope, after they have let you hold on to that word, hopefully. If this works out and that works out, then we're good. And hopefully this works out over here. And then hopefully somebody comes up. They actually used the phrase yesterday, next man up, in terms of Rhys Hoskins. Joe Girardi said that. And it was the most sheepish way to say next man up. Like the Eagles, when they won their Super Bowl, they said, hey, next man up mentality. Let's get it. Sixers even used it when guys got injured. Next man up mentality, that whole thing. Joe Girardi was like, well, I guess the next guy is going to say, I guess next man up. It was just, it didn't grab you. We'll let you hear a little bit later. But I just look back on our last 10 seasons, thinking about the injuries, thinking about the prospects that have been called up and have not helped you, thinking about the prospects that have been called up and been misused, thinking about the guys that were supposed to be the next ones, the next guys that were supposed to be the next Chase Utley or Ryan Howard or Cole Hamels or whoever, Jimmy Rollins, whoever it was supposed to be. And every single one of them has just either hit a brick wall or just not here anymore. J.P. Crawford is one of those guys who's actually put a nice little career for himself together over the last couple of seasons out there in Seattle. And who do you have playing shortstop right now for you? Didi Gregorius. And I know Didi came up and got your last RBIs last night with a 2-run single to right field. Great. But what is happening? We have talked a lot about Rhys Hoskins, Harper, JT Realmuto, all these guys throughout the season. Didi Gregorius, I know he's had an injury and he's been dealing with that throughout the season. But where's been the production? Where's the production been with Didi Gregorius? And I'm looking at that play he had in the 7th inning, that ball hit over his shoulder that he's tracking back in shallow left field for, and he lets it drop in. And I'm thinking that's a play that 9 times out of 10 I thought he would make. It's just these little things where you're waiting for that next man to step up, and there's nobody that you really have confidence in stepping up. Here's what I do have confidence in. If you're going to continue to watch this season and you're not going to completely make a shift over to football, because it's one of the first things I thought of when I saw Rhys Hoskins talking to the media in the dugout yesterday. That's one of the first things I thought of. It was, all right, let's go Birds, right? No? Fly Eagles fly? No? But one of the things I thought of yesterday when I was watching Rhys Hoskins in the dugout was how quickly will people just transition, if they haven't done it already, to just focusing 100% on the Eagles. And then, of course, looking at the Sixers and the Flyers and all that. But as I'm watching Rhys yesterday, I'm thinking, who's going to be the guy that's going to step up and make sure they take over for this team? Who's going to be the guy? And I thought there's going to be no guy that takes over for this team and like propels them into the postseason by any means. Now 5.5 games out of first place here on August 27th. But I do look forward to watching Bryce Harper for the rest of this year, because I think we're going to learn a lot about Bryce Harper, because nobody is expecting the Phillies to make the playoffs. I don't think most people expected the Phillies to make the playoffs anyway, even before last night, even before yesterday as a whole, with all the injuries that we found out with Hoskins and still Eflin and those guys. But still, again, losing to the Diamondbacks again, these are the games that we're going to look at and go, all right, well, this is where they could pack it in, or we could find out a lot about these guys on this team. JT Realmuto is another one of these guys, but I think mostly we're all going to be focused, if anything, we're going to be checking box scores at least to see at least what Bryce Harper did the night before. That's what we'll be looking for. We'll be scrolling Twitter to see what Bryce Harper did the night before. That's the only guy I'll be really focusing in on. Other than that, maybe you'll get some September call-ups, and we'll see how they do. We'll get maybe they'll give us some hope for the following season. Maybe they'll give us some hope that things are about to change. But I have put it all on Joe Girardi for weeks ago, talking about when the Phillies were winning 8 in a row, and I say this all comes to Joe Girardi. Well, now it's off of Joe Girardi's shoulders. Now I'm out. Like, Joe, you had your chance. It's not happening. Team's not good enough. Also, the injuries are just too much to overcome as well. My focus is off of Joe Girardi. My focus now shifts from the manager of this baseball team to the president of baseball operations, Dave Dombrowski, and Sam Fold as well, their general manager. Now it's all about making sure that this does not go 11 seasons between playoffs for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now that's where my focus is. It's off of Joe Girardi. There's nothing he can do to save this season. I don't think this roster is good enough anyway to save this season. It's now about finally building a contender. And I thought Dave Dombrowski the other day made a great first step in trying to make sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes that they've made in years past. They have a big shakeup in the front office this week, where they have they're going to be using a different player, a different director of player development going forward. They're on the lookout right now to bring in somebody else to make sure that they're harvesting this young talent and grooming this young talent properly, so that maybe, just maybe, by the time Bryson Stott's able to come up to the big leagues, he'll have somebody actually guiding him along the way that's not going to mess with his head the way a guy like Spencer Howard has talked about. We didn't even get into that story throughout this week. We talked about when Spencer Howard was traded to the Rangers and Kyle Gibson came here to Philadelphia. We showed you some of the press conference with Spencer Howard basically openly mocking how the Phillies had handled him. And you might think, you young whippersnapper, what the hell do you know? It's like, no, I think anybody that gets drafted, anyone that gets told their role, they kind of start grooming themselves, mentally preparing for that role. And then the next thing you know, you got them coming in as a closer, you got them not making the roster, coming out of spring training, and you just kind of push them all around. Spencer Howard, earlier this week in Texas, was like, well, you could either polish a turd or I could start focusing in on the way the Rangers want me to be in this organization. And what he was referring to was his time with the Phillies, how he could either continue to follow the plan they had him on as far as being a pitcher, as far as the regiment they had him on, and polish the turd, or he could go with another organization that is now invested in him like the Rangers have and listen to the way that they want him to develop as a pitcher. Polish a turd is the phrase that a young up-and-coming pitcher used with the way the Phillies were handling him in his career. Polish a turd. I don't think it's any accident that shortly thereafter, Dave Dombrowski's like, all right, screw it. We got it. Let's do the next thing here. Let's move on and find a new director of player personnel. So Phillies, fork in ya. See you later. Again, until next year. Eagles play a little football game tonight. 7:30 kickoff against the Jets. They wrap up their preseason. You guys know where I stand on this. Can I see the starters just a little bit tonight? I just want to see the starters for a little bit. I don't need a full half. I don't need the old Andy Reid where it's the third preseason game and albeit now the final preseason game. I don't need an Andy Reid where they're playing into the third quarter or anything ridiculous like that. I just want to see him for a quarter. Can I get a quarter at most? I'll settle for like 3 series. I'll settle for 3 series. Jalen Hurts, at least a handful of the starters of your offensive line, and see where it goes from there. That's all I want. That's all I want. No more, no less. Give me the 3. If I get 3 series, I'm a happy man. With that being said, I don't think anybody's playing tonight. I don't think anybody is playing tonight. I think tonight's going to be all about what the 4th preseason game used to be about, which is the guys that are on the bubble, trying to make the squad, guys like Greg Ward, guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, guys like Travis Fulgham. You'll see a lot tonight going in the running back position. Kenyon Barton has already been Kerryon Johnson's already been released by the Eagles, so they're moving on in another direction as far as that goes. You're looking at a lot of these guys right now that are just on the bubble that'll get their opportunity tonight, their last-ditch effort to try to make the squad. That's really all it is. So let's see what happens in that regard. It's weird. I just kind of want to just get this off the books, and I think most people are the same way when they look at the third and final preseason game this year when they don't expect the starters to start. I think most people at least want to see him out there tonight, but I think most people know the deal. You're going to get a lot of Joe Flacco tonight. That's what you're going to get. You're getting a lot of Nick Mullins tonight. That's what you're going to get tonight. So I think most people are just ready to get this off their table and move on to the regular season, and I'm certainly there with you in that regard. There's another story that's out there, and that's really all there is about the Eagles, see how the third preseason game goes. But there's another story that came out yesterday from our friend Michael KB in the basketball world with the 76ers. Take a look at this tweet. Michael KB, Ben Simmons talks have stalled. His trade talks have stalled for the time being, and the Sixers are prepared to have him on the roster at the start of the season, according to league sources. No big surprise here. Once the Sixers had news go out regarding what they wanted back in return for Ben Simmons, and that came out around the draft, once that it went belly up, and you didn't get anybody to panic during the draft and get, what was it, a total of like 5 assets back in return, including 3 first-round picks, an all-star caliber player, second-round pick, whatever you want to say. That haul that you were asking for in return for Ben Simmons, once that fell through, it wasn't going to happen. So now I don't think anything happens before the season. And let's also put it like this. Sixers and Daryl Morey, I think, have handled this exactly how they should handle this up until this point. And that means if you're not going to get Dame Lillard, if you're not going to get anybody jumping to trade for Ben Simmons, and like I said, even at the draft, panic to trade for Ben Simmons and give you more than what they should, then this is exactly how the Sixers should be handling this, which is releasing right now that you're totally fine with having him back on the roster at the start of next year and letting him play in the beginning of next year so that the last memory other GMs have of Ben Simmons isn't him passing to Matisse Thybulle on the baseline against the Hawks in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. That's the last memory you want anyone to have as their lasting memory of the guy you're trying to trade away. And I am willing, and I've been saying this, I am willing to give Ben Simmons that opportunity to come back as a 76er and see what he does, if he changes anything in his game. And if he does it, see you, Ben. We've already found out, regardless of how well you've played during the regular season, it does not translate into postseason success. The Sixers have enough going against them for the modern NBA going against them in the postseason, especially with having a center as your MVP and your best player and your go-to guy. That goes against everything the conventional wisdom tells you about modern-day basketball. That's already not going in the Sixers' favor. Now you also want to try to overcome a point guard that won't shoot? No thanks. So have him come back next year. Let people know that the price is still very high this offseason. Maybe you'll get somebody to bite on it. Maybe you will. But if not, have him come back next year. See if his game has changed at all. If not, maybe he will end up going to a team like the Warriors. Maybe he will end up going to Los Angeles. Maybe he will end up going to Minnesota. Maybe he will end up going elsewhere. But as of right now, you're not exactly selling Ben Simmons high if you're making a trade this offseason. So this goes right again. I'll show you again. Just to say that he could come back, this is exactly the way the Sixers should be handling this. Because if you're, who cares? Just get rid of him for the rack of basketballs, stock in the vending machine, right? All that. No, that's ridiculous. Ben Simmons is still a pretty damn good basketball player. In the right system, he could be, again, the even better than what he was here in Philadelphia, which is already an all-star. So if he comes back and he's the same exact player with no signs of improvement, with a mid-range game or better foul shooting or whatever it might be, then, yeah, it's time to move on from him. Daryl Morey, I applaud you. You're handling this exactly the way you should be handling this. Before we get to our guest today, who's Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation, to talk about all things Philadelphia Eagles, I do want to let you hear, to go back to the Phillies here, I want to let you hear from Rhys Hoskins making the announcement yesterday. And it was kind of weird. Rhys didn't come out and say that his season was done. He was asked about whether or not he thinks he would return. Here's how Rhys Hoskins handled it yesterday in the Phillies dugout.
We're back on the IL, so it just didn't go as planned.
Do you think you'll play again this year?
I don't think so. I know surgery soon is an option. It's being talked about. So I don't think I'll be playing at all for the rest of the year. Yeah.
As I said yesterday, when you see Rhys Hoskins at first base and a ground ball hit right at him, eats him alive, and he lets it go into right field. And then later in the game, another ball is hit in his direction, and he's trying to dive to his right to make the play, and he blows a tire is what it looks like. He should have been taken out of the game at that point. He later comes up to tie the game later with a home run. His last home run, his 27th home run of the season, to left field. But he should have never been given that at bat. At that point, if your real objective, if your real goal was to protect Rhys Hoskins, there's no way you can look at that play at first base, the second ground ball hit to him, and say, oh, yeah, you're going to stay in the game. See what you can do. I give him all the credit in the world. I admire him for wanting to carry on, wanting to push through. But there's a point where, as an organization, you have to save the player from himself. And I thought that should have happened in, what was it, the 5th or 6th inning yesterday? 2 days ago, rather. And now we're at the point where he's done. You're going to give him spot starts here and there, and now he's done. Next man up, right? Here's Joe Girardi talking about what the Phillies need to do now.
We found different ways to lose games, but, I mean, as you see, there's no quit in this team, and we're going to fight. Obviously, we need to start winning some games. I don't think that's, any secret, but it's frustrating what we went through after we played so well there and put ourselves in a pretty good position. We've kind of
they did 2 games up in first place, like what, not even a month ago, and then now 5.5 games out of first place. Baseball's fun. Let me tell you about my good friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. Steven Singer Jewelers, or IHateStevenSinger.com. Do what I do for all your big jewelry purchases, folks. Trust my guy, Steven Singer. And how about this? A lot of times you worry about paying too much for a diamond, paying too much for jewelry in general, whether it's a nice tennis bracelet, a nice necklace, whatever it might be. Well, how about this? How about knowing that every single time you walk into this place, you're going to get the perfect price every single time? It's not going to be based on your negotiating skills at Steven Singer. Oh, no. At Steven Singer Jewelers, you know what you're getting out of this? You're getting the perfect price, knowing you're getting taken care of by a real jewelry expert every time you walk into the other quarter of 8th and Walnut, or go to IHateStevenSinger.com. Also, fast and free shipping, always available at IHateStevenSinger.com. And make sure you check out this at IHateStevenSinger.com. Check out this, the 9/11 Memorial Pendant, 20 years since 9/11. This goes to a great cause, $10, just $10 at IHateStevenSinger.com, and you could help take care of some great people right there. The other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. Do what I do. Trust Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Without further ado, let's get our Eagles fix on all the things we can look forward to tonight. For everyone that's going to be tuned into our third and final preseason game here in Philadelphia before the regular season starts, and some position battles to watch out for. Let's talk to our good friend, Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. And joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line from Bleeding Green Nation, Brandon Lee Gowton. What's up there, BLG?
Marc, the Eagles are done with training camp, so we have one preseason game left before we get into the regular season, so I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, man. And your latest article right now on bleedinggreennation.com, people can check this out to follow the Dallas Goedert story about pursuing a contract extension to, obviously extend the Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert. Whereabouts are we on that? I think it was Jeremy Fowler put it out there on ESPN. Do you think the Eagles will get that done before the season, in season? How do you think that goes?
I think the Eagles have interest in keeping him, obviously, for sure. I think they view him as a long-term piece. But it's weird, though, because they haven't been able to reach a deal to this point. And their MO, as we know, in recent years has been to get these guys signed like ahead of the market. They certainly did that with Carson Wentz, and that didn't work out so great. But, that's kind of what they're trying to do. And then at the same time, Zach Ertz is still here. So I wonder if that kind of creates some reluctancy on Dallas Goedert's part in terms of, wanting to be the feature guy and everything and make sure the team really is committed to him. So I don't know. I don't really know that there's going to be a big factor here unless maybe Ertz does get moved. And at that point, he's willing and they're offering him the money he wants. I also think from the Eagles end, we don't know what Dallas Goedert looks like as tight end number one, as the volume target. We know he can be a very good number two or a guy who has to fill in as a number one when Zach Ertz was last year. We've seen signs of potential, but we don't know if he can handle a full season workload.
Now, the other thing that's interesting is we also don't know how this is going to work under Nick Sirianni. It almost seems like he's really reluctant, to use that word reluctant again, to use two tight end sets. I thought that when he got signed here, they did that a lot when they were in Indianapolis. You obviously have two good tight ends here. How do you think they end up using these tight ends in Nick Sirianni's offense?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a decent amount of it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be to the insane level that it's been the past couple of years where the Eagles have basically led the league and by far in 12 personnel. And part of that obviously was because of what they were working with. They didn't have any wide receivers really worth playing. But, it's not an ideal setup when you're relying on 12 personnel that much. The whole NFL uses 11 personnel a lot more for a good reason. Wide receivers are really important to have. I think with the receiving talent the Eagles have, and we've seen some promising signs, obviously, from not only Devontae Smith, but Quez Watkins as well. And Jalen Reagor has been inconsistent, but he's flashed here and there. I think it's going to be more of a mix, more of a balance between 11 and 12. But I mean, with Goedert and Ertz on the roster here right now, I mean, I don't think you're not going to play it at all if those guys are going to be around.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so let's talk about those skill positions a little bit more now. You mentioned the wide receivers. Who's the odd man out here? You're talking about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, all these guys when Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, as well as Devontae Smith seem to be turning heads. Who do you think is going to be the guy that's going to be left off this roster?
Yeah, so, I think Quez, Devontae, Reagor, I mean, I'd say they're really only the three locks. I think Greg Ward is going to make the team because he's a solid option. He can play special teams, so I think he's going to be in. Travis Fulgham, again, I would have him on my 53-man roster projection right now, but he hasn't had a great training camp, and he had a good practice against the Jets this week, but the Jets don't have the best defensive backs in the world, so I don't know how to read into that too much, but he's kind of been disappointing. And I mean, look, you're seeing it. He's playing late into preseason games like he was last week. And then you have JJ. I don't think JJ has done enough to really make this team, but I wonder with the GM being in charge of roster decisions and Harry Roseman, they might just keep him around anyway. Wide receiver could kind of be a position they look at in terms of waivers because, the Eagles are a little bit higher than they usually are in seasons past. They have the 6th overall spot in the waiver claim, same as the draft order. So they could look to attack that. They might keep some guys like a JJ or a Fulgham at first and might cut them a couple days later if they get someone they like on waivers. And another name I'll throw in here who can kind of make this interesting is Andre Patton, who came into training camp everyone thought he was going to be just a camp body because the Eagles had some wide receiver injuries. He's almost had the summer last year that Travis Fulgham did in terms of coming in here out of nowhere and kind of making some nice catches, not doing anything super sensational, but kind of just being a really solid guy. And obviously he has some background on Nick Sirianni, so I would keep an eye on him.
Okay, there's one name that at one point in the preseason it made me he brought me excitement, and that was Miles Sanders. And the only time that he's done that is when he talked about using the screen game more under Nick Sirianni than they did under Doug Peterson and featuring the running back maybe a little bit more than they did under Doug Peterson. But as far as everything else goes, his play, all I read about with Miles Sanders is there's drops. He's dropping the football. He can't run the screen game because he can't catch the football. At what point do we get concerned about him going into the season and start getting excited about Kenny Gainwell, for instance?
It's a big concern. I mean, Miles Sanders led the NFL in drops last year for running backs, and I believe he led the Eagles as a team in drops. So it's a real concern. He's had, I'd say, at least 5 or so in training camp, which is like a decent amount. Again, he led the NFL last year with 8. So that's a significant number. Now, he's coming off a practice against the Jets on Wednesday, where he had a productive day in the passing game. So that's a good sign to see, maybe ending camp on a strong note. But there have been drops in there. And also, along the lines of Wednesday's practice against the Jets, Kenny Gainwell was in there with the ones a decent amount and getting looks as a passing target. So I don't think it's like Miles Sanders is, penciled in for this huge role in terms of running the ball and catching the ball. I mean, he's going to have a big role running the ball, and I think he still looks great as ever in that regard. But again, for you to kind of be on the field like a lot more, you're going to have to show it in the passing game too. And to me, there's still a lot of concerns there.
To flip it on the defensive side of things, I have really liked what I've seen so far from Milton Williams, the rookie defensive end. I love what I'm seeing from him so far, as a matter of fact. It seems like he's always being able to push his guy back. Not necessarily roller skates just yet, but he seems like he's able to gain an edge as an edge rusher for the Eagles. What do you make of him so far throughout training camp in the preseason?
I mean, he's been a big surprise in the sense of, the Eagles draft him. We all see him listed at defensive tackle. We figure, okay, he's going to play defensive tackle. But really, he's been between positions, and I think his biggest highlights have come at defensive end. So that was unexpected, especially because, too, you look at what the Eagles already have at defensive end. You're talking about Josh Sweat, who's had one of the best camps of anyone on the team. I thought Derek Barnett, before he kind of has been banged up recently with a shoulder injury, was having a good camp too. Not as good as Josh Sweat's, but still a pretty good one. I mean, obviously Brandon Graham is starting, and then Ryan Kerrigan has been banged up, but he should be back soon, coming off a thumb surgery. So, I mean, that's a pretty, deep top 4 already. And then you add Milton Williams somewhere in there. I think he's going to bounce back and forth between defensive end and defensive tackle. But yeah, he's really impressed me. A big reason why the Eagles drafted him was how athletic he is. And you kind of see that explosion, or at least we've seen that so far. Really big game last week when he was able to force 2 holding penalties, didn't get the sacks, but just to kind of have that impact out of the gate, I think he's going to be a nice little rotational player for them.
I remember talking to Chris Long the Super Bowl year and asking him, who on the defensive line do you think is really going to step up and be something special? And he said Josh Sweat. And it seems like every year somebody mentions Josh Sweat as the guy that's going to either break out or turn heads or take that big step forward. And now I'm seeing it more so than ever right now. Do you think Josh Sweat will be one of those guys that steps up and kind of takes the reins?
I really do, just because he's dominated in training camp, and now part of his success has been because he's been going up against Andre Dillard. But it's not only that, he's been very dominant. He makes plays every single day. Him and honestly Javon Hargrave. I have to mention Javon Hargrave in here because he has been also just really consistently dominant. These guys are like living in the backfield. They're just causing disruption on not necessarily every play, but a lot of plays. So yeah, I'm very bullish on both of those 2 players this year.
I got to tell you, Brandon, I don't know about you, but when I look for a first-round pick, I look for an offensive lineman that will be a morale booster for my defensive ends. That's what I look for every single time. Here's the thing. I've been hearing this all the time. Apparently, the joint practices are just as good as preseason games because I didn't even know it. I thought the Eagles were having less preseason games this year with 3. Turns out that they had 7. I didn't even know that. First off, I kind of half joked about this on the show yesterday, saying that the Players Association then needs to charge more money for having joint practices. Well, charge money for having joint practices. I got to play Jalen Hurts. I got to play some members of the offensive line going into the final preseason game to at least break up what would be a month between snaps and only getting 2 series in the preseason to playing in the regular season. Where do you stand on joint practices versus preseason, and where do you stand on the starters actually playing in the finale on Friday?
I think it's a good approach to have the joint training camp practices. I think there's a lot of value in them. I think they should do both. I think it's not like we need to eliminate one or the other. I think the model should be, it's not ideal for people who are paying tickets, obviously, and everything. But in terms of team success, if we're looking at it from that perspective, not an entertainment perspective, I think it makes the most sense for the teams to have these joint training camp practices and then limit the preseason playing time to a couple series or 2, kind of like we saw in the Steelers game. I think that makes the most sense because you're trying to cut down on the injuries. And hey, look at what the Eagles have done this summer in terms of avoiding injuries, like knock on wood here. But they haven't had any, at least really big ones. Jason Kroom got hurt in the preseason last year. He's out for the season, but that guy probably wasn't going to make the team anyway. So yeah, I think it's hard to kind of criticize the approach that's been taken here in terms of the results. They've been healthier. Last year, this time, I think they were missing like 7 or so starters heading into week 1. So it's made a big difference. So I think it's interesting to see what they can get out of these joint training camp practices. And I agree with you in terms of, I think we need to see Jalen Hurts not play a whole half. I don't need to see that. But I would like to see a series or two, get him in there. And again, it's a long layoff. It's the extra layoff this year. And yeah, I think there's some value in playing him.
Yeah, okay. You and I are on the same page as far as that goes. How would you evaluate Nick Sirianni's first preseason run as a head coach?
I think it's a positive for him because I think, again, you look at the injuries, and I think, a lot of that is also part of the front office and the Eagles kind of mandating these shorter practices and everything. But, he's the head coach, so he's part of that process, I guess. And I'll give him some credit there. I'll give a lot of credit to him for the Eagles having energy in these practices. By contrast, I was not impressed with the Jets, not only because of their lack of talent, but when they were getting dominated by the Eagles in practice, it kind of just didn't really seem like they cared to me. Like they weren't really upset or anything, or there wasn't a lot of juice when they made plays the same way there was when the Eagles did. So I think some of that comes from Nick Sirianni. We all know he's very energetic. I think that's kind of rubbing off on the personality of the team and the culture as a whole. And then I would just say, kind of expanding on that, I think there's just positive vibes around the Eagles coming out of training camp. I'm not saying they're going to have this amazing season because of that, but by contrast, again, when you look at last year, there was Zach Ertz wanted to get more money, and he was reportedly fighting with Howie Roseman at practice. Jason Peters was demanding a raise to play left tackle. There were all these weird things going on that kind of didn't feel great. There's a much more positive vibe coming out of this camp.
I'll never forget Doug Peterson talking about Jason Peters then showed up and darkened my doorway. And then he said, "Hey, coach, wherever you need me." Hurrah. Anyway, so yeah, I agree with you on the kind of weird things going on there. Do you have a number in mind for the season, Brandon? Can I be so bold at this point? More or less 3 weeks away from the season here. Do you have a number in mind for the Eagles in 2021?
So when the schedule came out originally, I had them at 8-9, and I kind of felt like that was optimistic for me because I haven't been feeling super great about them. I kind of was saying okay, I think between 6-11 and 8-9. I think I'm kind of, maybe I'll just split the difference. I'll say 7 at this point, but I think I'm going to say 8-9. I think that's kind of what they're going to be. I think they have some nice pieces here, but I think something that we kind of don't always contextualize is that there's a lot of good teams in the NFL too. A lot of other teams or a lot of other fans out there are just as excited about their team, unless you're the Texans maybe or the Jets. There's hope and promise for a lot of these teams, and I don't think the Eagles quite stack up. I mean, they were bad last year, and that's relevant. I don't think that's totally irrelevant. I think they can take a step forward, improve certainly, but I still don't think they're this kind of double-digit win team. I still think they're a ways off there. And for as much as I think Jalen Hurts ended camp on a high note, I still think, there's questions about just how good he is among the NFL's very best quarterbacks, and that's a big driving factor. So I'm going to mark him down at 8-9.
All right, last one for you. I know you're also a hoops guy. How do we solve this Ben Simmons fiasco?
Oh, well, before I came on the show with you here, I saw some rumors floating around that he might just be on the roster, and I can't even watch him. Honestly, I can't.
wait. What about the roster? I'm sorry.
Just that Ben Simmons might still be on the team. They might keep him. They might have to keep him. Or that's kind of been floating around there anyway. Yeah. And because the trade hasn't materialized yet, and every day I kind of just wake up hoping that trade is going to happen. Ever since they were eliminated in the playoffs, I said, I was like, I can't do Ben Simmons anymore. I can't do it because it's the definition of insanity. It's just watching the same thing, expecting different results. I can't do it. I'm done. I need him gone. I can't watch the Sixers. I cannot watch them play until he is off the team. Okay,
so are you in the rack of basketballs category? Trade him for, or are you Dame Lillard or bust?
I mean, I'm going to say the Eagles. The Sixers need Dame Lillard. They absolutely need to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, obviously, short of trading Joel Embiid, which doesn't make sense. They need to get it done. Daryl Morey has to get it done. It's not good enough if they're settling for some other option. So I don't think it's necessarily possible or probable that you're doing some kind of 1-for-1 trade. I think it kind of might take some creativity here with Daryl Morey trading Ben Simmons for something, and then taking that and then finding that and creating a package, to send to Portland and kind of working it out that way. And that's maybe why, at least in my mind, why it's taking more time, because it's a complicated negotiation. I'm hoping that's the case. But yeah, I just can't do Ben Simmons anymore. I don't know that I'm trading him for literally anything, but right. There has to be at least one deal out there that makes sense enough.
All right, I hope there is, and I hope there's someone to come in here. But as of right now, Brandon, I'm sorry, I am one of those guys that I'd take him back for at least half a season because I mean, the thing is, it basically just, and I don't think he'll do it. I'm not betting on him to come in with a jump shot and be a 75% free throw shooter at least, but I'm at least willing to give it a shot if it means he can give you a couple of months of solid play, and then you could trade him when his value is a little bit higher than what it is right now. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, brother.
I feel like people, but just real quick on that, I feel like people are gonna that'll happen. They'll be like, oh, just keep him now, and then so they'll be like, no, same thing's gonna happen in the playoffs. So I really just don't want to see it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he does come back, I need to see the drastic change in his game. And then if he doesn't, at least he'll be remembered for playing better than he did before he passed the Matisse Thybulle. Let's put it that way. I think the GMs around the league will at least have a not as recency bias when it comes to trading for. At least that's what I'll cross my fingers for.
Okay.
Brandon Lee Gowton, Bleeding Green Nation, you do a great job. Make sure you're following him. Make sure you're reading his stuff on Bleeding Green Nation. Again, his latest story that's up there right now follows all the things that's going on with Dallas Goedert. And how about this? We're talking about maybe an 8-win season for our Philadelphia Eagles. Brandon, thank you so much, brother. Good catching up with you.
Thanks, Mark.
Brandon Lee Gowton joining us on the... Always good catching up with Brandon Lee Gowton, Bleeding Green Nation on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line, and he is a big Hoops fan as well. You can't just ignore that. Notice, it's funny, these guys like Adam Kaplan, for instance, he always loves when I tee him up for Sixers stuff. And by the way, if you didn't see his Adam Kaplan's quote, we'll get to that in a second, on Devontae Smith and Allen Iverson, it's pretty awesome. However, Brandon, it's funny when I tee these guys up for something that is outside the football realm, how excited they get, because it's like, nobody asked me about this. This is great. And Brandon, I know, is a big Hoops fan, and I didn't realize that he was that out on Ben Simmons. It's the old Kramer from Seinfeld episode where it's like, I'm out, money on the table, that whole thing. And that's what it seems to be right now for Brandon and Ben Simmons. And you guys know my stance. I've told you twice already. It's on this show, at least. I'm not out yet. I'm out if it's Dame Lillard. You guys know that. Let me tell you about the great people of Rothman Orthopaedics. Rothman Orthopaedics is exactly what you need. If you need orthopedic help, you need to trust Rothman Orthopaedics. When you have an orthopedic issue, you need a physician who eats, sleeps, and breathes orthopedics. You need an exceptionally specialized Rothman Orthopaedics physician. They not only specialize in orthopedics, but each of their physicians only focuses on one area of the body, which means you can have the confidence to get past the pain and be what you were. Visit them in one of their 30-plus locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, including 4 orthopedic-only urgent cares. Learn more at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. I was just at their Egg Harbor location, as a matter of fact. That place is pristine. Beautiful, beautiful place for Rothman Orthopaedics. And how about our friends at Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com? My man Tony Cavada is hooking it up. I've been seeing some of the stuff he's been posting on social media, the tomahawk steak, the sushi, just the bar itself. To sit at that bar at Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland is just a treat in its own right. You got a TV right in front of you, gorgeous TV. TV's all over the place. You can watch a game there, enjoy a drink or two. Great bar menu. Have yourself a time at Steak and Maine. Check out steakandmaine.com for more information. Whether you like their more upscale steakhouse, their casual bar, their patio to sit out on, Steak and Maine has it all. I always recommend the tomahawk steak with the Cavada Cellars wine, Pinot Noir. Go to a different planet. It's so delicious. And if you're having a big party, make sure you book the party table in the back. You'll feel like a king. It's just amazing. Steak and Maine in the heart of Northeast Maryland, voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. Steak and Maine, steakandmaine.com. And also, all the amazing things going on in the Philadelphia sports scene, make sure you're following it all with our friends at PHL Sports Nation. That's PHL Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience at phlsportsnation.com. Let's move it on into our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com. Based on some of the more recent comments I've seen floating up here on our comment section here in our chat, I'm a little afraid to go here. You'll see why in just a second. By the way, we do have our morning rush coming up, brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Dan, you tweeted this to me last night, and I meant to put it up on our board. I didn't get to it, unfortunately. So right now, Dan Schwartz checking in, saying good morning, y'all. Good morning to you as well, Dan. 9.09% of the Diamondbacks' wins this entire season have come against the Philadelphia Phillies, the team that we buried earlier in the show. That's pretty bad. That's like really bad. And that's the way it is right now. You know what? 10 years. There's a movie called Grosse Point Blank, and it wasn't exactly one of John Cusack's most famous movies ever, but Jeremy Piven's in it, Minnie Driver's in it, Hank Azaria of Simpsons fame is in it. But there's a point where John Cusack, his character, leaves after high school, ditches prom, and leaves for 10 years and comes back to the 10-year reunion, and at that point, he's a hitman. I mean, come on, don't we all? At the 10-year high school reunion, don't we all meet that person? Anyway, so there's a scene in the car where Jeremy Piven is saying to his best friend from high school who just left for a decade, and he's just freaking out over 10 years, the fact that it's been 10 years. And I feel like I'm in that mode right now when I think about the Phillies. 10 years! 10 years since the Phillies were a playoff team. And this will be the 10th season because they're not going to make the playoffs this year. And I'm losing my it's one of those things where like every once in a while, something will happen on the show, something will go on, and this has been across my 15 years doing shows and stuff. Like something will happen during the show that I'll feel bad about. Not necessarily something that I did, but something in the sports world. And I'll just think to myself, what was that thing that was really bothering me? And then I'll think, no, don't think on it because you'll remember it and you'll feel bad again. And then it's like, oh yeah, it dawns on you. The Phillies are missing the playoffs again. Like that's gonna, I guarantee you around 1:13 this afternoon, I'll be working on something. I'll be doing something. I want to put up a canopy in my house over our deck. You know, a nice little canopy. I want to put it over the deck so maybe I can. I saw somebody ask me if I was going to smoke a cigar this weekend. I'll need the canopy to do it. So I'm going to probably put the canopy out. And probably in the midst of doing that, I'll be thinking, what was the thing that I didn't want to get into on the show today, but I had to get into? And I'm like, no, don't think about it. You're going to make you feel terrible again. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to think about the Phillies. Damn it. That's where I'm going to be. That's where I'm going to be today. So, Dan, thank you. Yes, 9.09% of the Diamondbacks wins have come against the Phillies. How's your day going? What do we got here? Mally's checking in. What's up, Mally? Dan, that was a beautiful eulogy. Thank you so much. Gabe's checking in. Gross start, Dan. Yeah, you ain't kidding. April's checking in. High hopes. You know, maybe that's why I have the association of hopefully and hopes about the Phillies. By the way, yay or nay on making that the Phillies either 7th inning or 8th inning song? Because I think that's what they should do. It's just every single time sing that song, High Hopes, every single game, rather than just playing it at the end. And you can have Harry up there on the Jumbotron still, you know, all that stuff. That'd be fun. Pictures of Harry, but, you know, the Sinatra version playing throughout, that'd be fun. I would love that. I think that's something they should do in the Phillies. Phillies are who we thought they were. That's true. You know, I was on with my boy Broads yesterday. He actually just posted it to his YouTube channel. I was on with Broads the other day for his show. We were talking all Phillies. And he was talking about expectations. And here's one thing I'll never agree with. Once the season starts, all preseason expectations go out the window because you have no idea what can happen in that first game of the season about who could be hurt, who could be the hot hitter, who could be raising the bar, who could be lowering the bar. Like, preseason expectations go right out the door once the season actually starts. And a lot of people talk about this with the Flyers from a couple of years ago. By the way, 2 Flyers hits coming up in our Morning Rush segment. You don't want to miss that. But people, I always think that preseason expectations fly out the window. And this Phillies team, especially in the midst of 8 wins in a row, especially in the midst of getting Kyle Gibson at the trade deadline, especially with how Rhys Hoskins was hitting the ball, Bryce Harper playing himself in the MVP conversation, with Zach Wheeler in the Cy Young conversation. All that stuff goes out the window once you see guys play at that level. And to watch the Phillies just completely collapse over the last 3 weeks has been abysmal. And expectations change as the season goes on. And the Flyers a couple of years ago in the bubble, for instance, I know everyone wanted to talk about, if you would have told me before shutdown that the Phillies or the Flyers were going to be in a situation where they were going to be competing for the Eastern Conference Finals, you would have been happy with that. And you know what? Yes, at that time I would have. However, expectations change. You get the number 1 seed, you take care of business in the first round, you go into the second round, and you have a little back and forth going on, and all of a sudden your expectations change. That's what happens. So the Phillies, people saying, if you would have said that they were going to play meaningful games in August, you'd be excited. No, I wouldn't. No, I absolutely would not, because the ultimate goal was meaningful games in September. And they might get to that point. But I'm telling you, if the Phillies go on now, what did I say yesterday? They got 10 games against very winnable, beatable opponents. the Diamondbacks, the Washington Nationals, and the Miami Marlins. So even if they go on to win 9 in a row right now, and they even, let's just say, get to a game within first place, yeah, that'll be great. It'll be exciting, but they just don't have what it takes to put them over the hump right now. Not without Rhys Hoskins. Odubel Herrera, by the way, was one of the guys I brought up yesterday as a guy that, the guy who can hit a little bit, a guy who might be able to help you out. 2 days ago, I brought it up. Sorry. And then he lets the ball get by him in left field. Then over the last 2 days has swung at pitches that have been a foot outside the strike zone. One of the pitches was at his eyes. The other pitch was just a foot outside the plate that he flailed at. Like that. Anyway, so I'm done. I've been done with him for a while anyway. Why are we talking Phillies? Why are you team up? Oh, because I'm rehashing your comments from earlier in the show when I was talking Phillies, of course. Dak is checking in. Dak and Jay, what's up? Third pick, Alec Boehm. Yeah, I don't know. Alec Boehm has fallen off the wayside. Have y'all noticed since emo Marc has been mentioned, his shirt has gotten brighter and brighter throughout the week? Mally, thank you. Yeah, unlike the Phillies, my shirts have become brighter, I guess. No, that's a terrible tie-in. I'm sorry. I apologize. Miss Kuzi. Dak and Jay, exactly, Mally. Phillies draft and develop players poorly. Exactly. We're all on the same page there. No doubt. April, ugh. Can they not? Simmons is going to be even less motivated to shoot now. Just more pictures and videos. You know what we're going to do on the Farzy show? And April, you're kind of inspiring this because I saw that you posted something about him being an Instagram all-star. That's a good one for Ben Simmons there. And Dan, you're inspiring this as well. Simmons by far the best August NBA star ever. That's what we'll do. Maybe later today on our social media we'll release maybe we'll just tag the next Ben Simmons workout video. NBA Player of the Month for the month of August. Maybe that's what we'll do for Ben Simmons. Every single time. That'll be fun, right? That'll be motivating. Jerry's saying Howie needs to go. In all honesty, like Howie Roseman to me is like the least of our problems. Oh, Dan, here he is. Dan, or let's see. Mally is asking if I'm smoking a cigar this weekend. Maybe I'll treat myself. We'll see how the weekend goes. I didn't get to smoke as many cigars in Colorado as I wanted to. I smoked the one on the kayak. You guys saw that. But it's funny. It was the first time my wife and I were traveling with Lil Tuts in terms of a vacation. And you guys know it was the first time we were flying with her. And I noticed this. I found this out. A vacation with a kid is not a vacation. It's just parenting elsewhere. And it's just funny because a lot of times when you would have moments as on vacation of hanging out with other people late at night, for instance, those don't happen because you got to get back to wherever you're going. You got to get back to wherever your Airbnb is or your hotel to put the kid down. So I remember I was hanging out with some guys and I had cigars with us. And I was like, hey, you guys want to smoke a cigar? Yeah, smoke a cigar. And it was like 6 o'clock. I was like, 6 o'clock. Kid goes down at 7:30. I got like an hour. I'll smoke a cigar. That's fine. So I go grab the cigars. I come outside, cut the cigar, light the cigar, pass around the cigars, take my first like 2 puffs. And I get a call from Toots saying, Lil Toots, it's time for her to go. And I was like, all right, fellas, enjoy the cigars. See you later. And that was my contribution for the night. So I think I owe myself a couple of cigars. Julian's checking in. This is the one that made me afraid to go to the comments today, the chat today. Heard Farzy had a Jerry Sandusky jersey growing up. Huh? Where the hell did that come from? And then April said, no self-respecting Temple alum would ever wear a Penn State jersey by any means. April, thank you. And I'll tell you what, it does bother me, and it did bother me. Like, if I ever go back to Temple for speaking engagement, anything like that, or even when I was going to school there, and people would be walking around in Penn State stuff, I'd be like, what the hell, man? What are you doing? I'd be sitting in class, sitting next to a kid with a Penn State shirt. Oh, my brother goes there. Yeah, my brother went there, too. I don't own anything that's attributed to Penn State. And that has nothing to do with anything with Jerry Sandusky for the people that are Penn State people. That had nothing to do with that. I just was never a Penn State guy. My dad was a Penn State guy. My dad didn't go to Penn State. My brother did. And my dad would always wear Penn State stuff. And I think it was just because of Joe Paterno. I think it was an Italian thing, to be honest with you. But that was about it. But my brother went to Penn State. I was never a Penn State fan. I've never been a Penn State fan. I partied at Penn State. I actually got refused service at Penn State for being too drunk when I was in college. I went up there to visit. Actually, my buddies and I went to see Seinfeld Yeah, Seinfeld was up there. And anyway, that's a story for another day. But no, I do not own any Penn State attire. How much do you smoke this morning? How much did you smoke this morning? Meaningful games in September. This team sucks. That's correct. But for 5.5 games out, even if they go on, and then this is mostly because the teams that they're going to be playing also suck. They might be playing meaningful games in September, but meaningful means only that they'll be within a shot of the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. I'm not injecting hope into the season. Like I just said, even if they win 9 in a row, all right, let's fish a wish there. Even if they win 9 in a row, they're still not going to make the playoffs because they don't have it in them. They don't have it in them to be a winner. You know who has it in them to be a winner? The Atlanta Braves. And by the way, let's go back to that Pete Alonso chat from a couple of weeks ago, talking about when they got swept by the Phillies. And he's like, hey, you still believe, man. Still believe. You got to believe. That's my Pete Alonso impression. You still got to believe. Pete Alonso. Yeah, I don't think any Mets fans are believing right now. Level out. Great call if you did that, Mark. Wait, huh? Oh, the Ben Simmons thing. Yeah, that's got to be a good time. We need more body involvement from your reactions, Farzy. I'm an animated person. I'm a very animated person. And now interpretive dance. All right. Going with this kid, going without the kid is just as hard to enjoy. Wondering what they're doing. I'll leave that for my wife. That's vacationing without the kid. For non-parents, that's vacationing without the kids. Ray's checking in all their teams in the farm system, and they don't have a first baseman to bring up, and that's terrible. I own PSU attire, UPenn attire, but they are all work clothes. Oh, I own Penn attire, Pennsylvania University attire. You know, I was listening to the other day the Smartless podcast with Jason Bateman. My buddy Mikey hooked me up with that because he was like, dude, you got to listen to this Will Ferrell interview about how he started doing the Harry Carey impression. It was the backstory to that, and it's a great podcast. Jason Bateman's on it, Will Arnett's on it, and Sean Hayes is on it. Great podcast. But I didn't realize, listen to the one with Elizabeth Banks, and I totally forgot that she was a UPenn kid. She went to UPenn. She's from the Boston area, but she's from Massachusetts, but she went to Penn. She has her master's, as a matter of fact. Why does your Pete Alonso sound like Rocky? Like Rocky Balboa, April? You gotta believe. I thought there was a little more estrogen in my Pete Alonso impression. Leave that for my wife. That's right. That's how I roll. Thanks everyone for commenting in the comment section. Always appreciate you guys are awesome every single time. Thank you for checking in the chat, the very famous chat. Much appreciated. Now let's roll into our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Let's get into this. We already mentioned that the Phillies 5.5 games out of first place. Braves were idle last night, so the Phillies lost a half game in that regard. So the Phillies, that's what we got going on as far as that goes. Sean Couturier, I mentioned we're going to have some Flyers notes in today's morning rush. Sean Couturier, this is bonkers to me. An 8-year deal. 8-year deal. Gotta love hockey, right? What did Mike Richards sign all those years ago? Was it a 12-year deal? Sean Couturier, 8-year deal that keeps him a Flyer. Let's do the math. Beep, bop, bop, beep, bop, 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 till 2030. The year 2030. That just sounds gross to me. Gross. Derek Brassard, also, by the way, signing on with the Flyers, taking less money to do so. Stoked to be here. Says he has an opportunity to win with the win a Stanley Cup. Played for Alain Vigneault with the Rangers. And on top of that, he also said he's looking forward to playing with Claude Giroux as opposed to against him. Claude Giroux, I'm always interested to get other people's takes on Claude Giroux. People from outside the organization. It's hockey. I mispronounced it. My apologies. And I'm always interested to get their opinions because I think Claude Giroux is still one hell of a hockey player. And I feel like he gets a lot of disrespect here in Philadelphia simply because, and it's important, because they haven't won with him as a captain. And people forget that they practically went through a rebuild, non-buying mode under Ron Hextall. So that was 4 years of his career and 4 years of his captaincy. That was just, they weren't really trying to win, unfortunately. This is amazing to me. The Fighting Irish mascot, to which, by the way, all of my Irish friends, and I got a lot of them, love and admire. The Fighting Irish mascot is now under criticism from Quality Logo Products. This is a sports apparel company. Quality Logo Products has named the Fighting Irish mascot the fourth most offensive mascot in sports. All right. They have them up there. The most offensive is the San Diego State Aztec Warrior. It's not on my radar. But apparently, the Fighting Irish mascot is offensive. I don't know any Irish people. And I'll say this about the Washington football team. Like, I was all about changing, like, getting rid of that mascot, and that's fine. It's been a conversation my whole life, and it finally happened, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't know a one Irish person that has ever been like, yeah, I don't root for Notre Dame. Fighting Irish? What, are you kidding me? I don't know one of them. And I feel like I'm the only person in Pennsylvania that is a mix of any ethnic background, Italian, Polish mostly, that is not at all Irish. And all my Irish friends that I, will, of course, defer to, have never once looked at me and be like, that Fighting Irish Notre Dame, bad name for Irish people. They're more offended that the team just hasn't been that good than they are about a Fighting Irish mascot. I mean, I've been to Ireland. They love it over there, too. Irish Fighting Irish. It's a leprechaun. It's not even a real thing. Anyway. Whatever. Ray just posted, I'm half hours and I don't care about Notre Dame. I think he meant half Irish. Autocorrect got him on that. Yeah, I don't know anyone who's at all Irish. Like any bit, like their great grandmother twice, whatever, is Irish, and they're like at least, like, I don't care. Like my family's we're Catholic. Like I look at it and they all love Notre Dame simply because, not because of the Irish factor, but because of the Catholic factor. They love it for that too. I don't know anyone that's offended at the Irish thing, at the Fighting Irish thing. And the Fighting Irish is, like, I always thought that was a compliment. Fighting Irish, like they never quit. They're always fighting, right? I always thought that was a good thing. So I just thought that was a really, really, really weird thing. Did you guys see this? If you haven't seen it yet, check out Michael K. Our good friend Mike K. of NJ.com posted this yesterday. And I just want to tell you about it real quick. Mike K posted this great thing with Dave Spadaro interviewing Milton Williams, who I was just talking about with Brandon Lee Gowton. And he's interviewing him for the Eagles website, and they posted it on Twitter. And Mike caught this. I didn't catch this. Mike caught this. He retweeted it with a quote saying, look at Connor Barwin in the background. And Connor Barwin was working in the front office in a scouting capacity. And I guess he's also helping the coaching staff a little bit as well. And you see, as Milton Williams is being interviewed by Dave Spadaro, Dave's to his left, they're talking about the season and the upcoming season and his preseason and being a rookie and all that. And over Milton Williams' right shoulder, you see Connor Barwin flying in and out of the picture. And you're like, what's Connor Barwin doing? And Connor Barwin was working with some of the young defensive linemen about how, you could try to get around guys, about how you can, skirt blocking and all that stuff. And he's working with them on pass rushing moves to make them better football players. And the thing is, you're watching Connor Barwin and you're going, guy can still move. Guy can still move. And you just love the work ethic that goes into it and everything that's like that. It's a phenomenal thing that you're watching throughout the entire process. And it goes to show you how much work the guy's putting into it. And I just thought it was a great thing. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Much appreciated. Phillies are done, in case you didn't notice. Eagles, I'm hoping we see some starters tonight in the preseason. I doubt it, but I'll keep my fingers crossed for it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. Oh, we got one more. Dan's checking in saying he's Italian and German, no Irish. Wife is 100% Irish. Favorite Irish thing? The Irish goodbye. The Irish goodbye. That is pretty classic. I will say I don't identify with the Irish goodbye. I've never done an Irish exit. Yeah, I later found out it was an Irish exit. But that is a key move of Irish friends of mine. Like, to the point where they've been like, yeah, just go up and buy me a beer. I'll be right back. It's been towards the end of the night, getting the nightcap, the last drink of the night. I turn around, they're gone. And I'm like, I guess I got to drink these 2 beers. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Jim Hyden produced the program, did a phenomenal job as per usual. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Let's go Birds, ladies and gentlemen. See what they got going on tonight against the Jets as they wrap up the preseason. Talk to you guys on Monday morning. Take it easy, everybody.